Hey, what's up, guys? Continuing with the horror comics. In this case, Eerie publications. You get this big, the YOE collections. They do a lot of these things. With PSA. Why is this called the worst of Eerie publications? Right? Well, it's kind of funny. I had gone over Skywald yesterday, and there was a real quality to that, especially as it went on. Of course, it was sort of like to a takeoff of what Warren Publishing was doing with their horror comics, uh, using the black and white magazine format to get around the Comics Code Authority, getting into the grisliness again. Well, Eerie Publications, right? Not to be confused, the name of the Warren anthology was Eerie, but this publishing company called itself Eerie, and they had comics like these weird, and what is it, Tales of Voodoo, and you're gonna see, like, look at this gruesome art, and you're gonna see it where it's funny too. You see a lot of mutilated bodies, but then you see that the people have fangs, right? So you think, oh, these are vampires or whatever. I think it's just a case of, let's go over the friggin' top for no other reason than itself. For example, in their flagship horror anthology Eerie's, in this issue, more vampires, werewolves, and monsters than any other magazine. That's all you need, I mean, right? Now it's funny in terms of the intro. Yeah, during this book, of course, a pre-code horror and the revival in the '70s is usually seen as a good thing, right? And Warren was publishing Creepy and Eerie, right? The black and white thing to get around the Comics Code Authority. What's funny is this about what makes these comics collected in the worst of Eerie publications. What is it about this company, right? Shocking. They should have been censored. The cheap Warren knockoffs, and you get like covers like this. Where you get, like you said, you have all this gore, right? But then there's the person has fangs. So you're like, what are they killing vampires, eating vampires? It's just make everything a monster, right? The editor. Here's the main publisher here, Mr. Myron Fass. Unlike Skywald, where you can see the quality, these dudes didn't give a fuck. Okay, they basically, the thing with the Eerie publications, right? Like weird, right? Is that they not only did they really not care, there wasn't really a lot of original work. Almost everything was redrawn, or in the beginning, they had access to what is this, Ajax Farrell comics, right? They had access to these pre-code stories, and what they did was they just reprinted them, and in many cases they modified them to make them very gory. And in many cases, like even within the same magazine, you see stories repeated. They even took stories that they did that they added gore to, and then redrew them. Right. So doing stuff like this, just like taking the artwork and making it, having these awesome, crazy covers that don't make any sense, right? And then taking the stories and then changing them, right? Making them. Well, I'll show you an example. They show you here. One of the artists was a woman. Oh, how come she doesn't get any accolades? Right? Well, because look at what they're drawing. So here's an example. The original comic here from the 50s, Goulash, right? So, and you look at the panels, right? And then you look at the story, taking the same script and just redrawing it in a different way. That's what they did. There was literally no original stories. And lots of stuff like this that doesn't make any sense. Why is his eye popping out? Because it looks cool. It's gory. Right? Yeah. So in terms of the gore, the merrier. And you see stuff like this. Just like I said, this is not the There's gore for gore's sake. Yeah. So I give an example of something that you could see really well. I like horror tales. So these have different names: horror tales, tales of voodoo, weird. Right? I'm trying to think of are these stories good? Do I enjoy these? I kind of enjoy them in a cheesy way. The opposite of what I saw in Skywald. So, all right, like this story here. Here's an example, and they even give the liner notes. Right, so witches' tales. Right, it's 1969. So here you have an example of what I'm talking about. You have this vampire, and she's crushing other vampires. Like everyone's a monster. It doesn't really make any sense. So you have this old story here. Okay, this originally appeared in Fantastic Fears #8 in 1954 from Ajax Comics. So this is redrawn additional gore by Ezra Jackson. It's one of the artists working for that. And so essentially, I think I've seen the original story of this. And of course, the cactus was, which is kind of cool. Look at that cactus. Like, was killing people. But in this one, like, there's gore. Like, everything is added. Like, blood and gore is added to everything. So it is kind of cool. It's like, it's gonna kill me. This cactus. That cactus is awesome. Look at. Right, I don't. That was definitely not in the original. Right, so. You can't breathe. You can't breathe. Don't worry about breathing. Man's ripping your arms off. So, like you said, the original story art, the guy is adding gore to it for gore's sake. This bitch, she getting yours. Oh, right. So, this is interesting too. Like, this is another one redrawn. A pretty grim, hopeless little story here of a loving couple, basically fighting a no-win situation against giant, like, carnivorous ants. Oof. At least he went out like a man. But I'm just saying, like, you start to see, and like they were even reprinting stuff from Harvey Comics, not even some little no-name thing. Harvey, Witches' Tales. Now you remember this story, Vengeance? Remember this? This is I think they did a Alfred Hitchcock Presents in the '80s when they remade it. Remember the one? Of course this is a little different. But the story is the woman. They say she gets beaten, but she gets raped. Right, and then she with her husband, and she sees the guy that did it, and the husband's like, "You son of a bitch," and kills the guy. And you realize the whole twist is done. Then she goes, "There he is, there he is." Every man she sees, she thinks that's the guy that raped her, and the guy realizes, "Oh my God, my wife is insane." But she's insane, but she's gonna get off easier than your ass. You're a murderer, right? So that was the whole gist of it. Like I said, it's just good. It's just so over the top. Like, this one's kind of cool. Actually, this dude deserves it. This dude is like this is like more of a crime story, I guess you could say. This is kind of funny. Surprise! Oops! I think I just holding that. So anyway, so let's look at was it the Weird magazine? Right, this was their flagship anthology, and you can see like this one here is like number 10. It came out in '66. This is redone by Fantico, right? The new Fantico, I guess. Right? And then the guy didn't even finish the artwork for this. Just get it out. And so this was a cool Frankenstein story. But the point I'm making is that you had something like this. This is actually kind of decent. This was original, right? But for the most part, most of the stuff was like reprints. Like this one, like the guy. I like how the guy essentially runs away, and leaves his wife to die. So you can see it's more the old style. It's fun, right? But the Skywald was definitely superior to this, And I just like in this more vampires, werewolves, and monsters, right? And like I said, almost everything in here, I think there were very few original stories. Everything was just reprinted, and then just gore added to it later. At this point, I don't even think they were doing that. But this is a funny story. This woman, she turns into a vampire, right? So the doctor takes her to the private sanitarium, and you realize that he's a natural vampire. I mean, I don't even know. You're an induced vampire, not a natural one. What the hell does that mean? But that means that he's gonna kill her. So this had to be a reprint story. I don't know. This was kind of cool. This is basically a coffin. The protagonist is this coffin, and all the different people that end up in the coffin for some reason it's dug up a lot. So, and that's that's Eerie Publications. This was a cool story. For some reason, I guess in the British Isles there's a dragon, and they summon Roman soldiers to slay the dragon, but then they want to kill them. Right? And they're up. By your ancient rules, you seek sanctuary in a Roman camp. You must be spared until you have a fair trial. Ah, he's right, of course. We need the Romans again. Now, I'll end it right here. Night of Terror. Now, this story, right? This is the reprint. Right, this is the reprint of from the 50s. It's funny how the old woman is just this escaped axe murderer who she apparently she escapes a lot, and they just take her back to the nut house. But it's always funny how the cops are like, there she goes again. Now, the whole idea is that this same exact story, as you can see in the reprint here, was literally redrawn. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? They just redrew that same script. Where is it? Making me look bad here. But you get what I'm saying. Like, literally that story was redone here. Let's see if I can find it with the time I have. And you get all these like just monsters that don't really make any sense. Anyway, you get my drift. Actually, some of these stories are kind of cool. Like the one with the hanged was kind of cool. This one was just like, blah. I just gore for gore's sake. Yeah, here's that same story redrawn with a more contemporary art style, but it's the same thing. The crazy woman comes out with the axe, chops them up, and then the cops come and like, she got out again. Yeah, you know how crazy she is. Yeah, I mean, literally, just recopying the same story. It is kind of And one last thing in terms of BTD mentioned this, right? And here it is, right? This Myron and them were so cheap, very cheap. This story here, right? They would literally do this. Where where is it? Wait, this is the last page. Look, this is the paper. Where is it? I would actually have the last. Not to waste the cover on the back. They would actually have this. They'd end the story on the back of the magazine. Same thing with this one. So obviously, this is something that they did. Genius, madness. It's just making a buck, That's all. That's all it was. Enjoyable, but not obviously for a much different reason. But that was weird, all right. Eerie, the worst. Love it.